I'm sure we'll get into some of that as the course of the show, goes on. But this team is in a perfect position to capitalize on what they've done this offseason, but more importantly, set themselves up for hopefully a future that keeps a window open for them, given what they've been able to build organically through the draft, whether it be CeeDee Lamb, whether it be Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs is a second-round pick. They've been able to build their stars through the draft, and now it's time for that to pay off, given what you're able to bring in. And if you can, you've been able to put yourself in a great position for the next couple of years, even with the Eagles and the 49ers, being at the top alongside the Cowboys in the NFC right now.
Well, I'll say this, man. If anyone in the world can understand my struggles of being a Cowboys fan in Kansas City, it's Kevin. Now, Kevin, you gone. I'm still here, man. So right now, I constantly feel like that Squidward meme where I'm sitting looking out my window watching all these Chiefs fans celebrate and, parade around.
Listen.
It's rough. It's rough, man.
Listen.
It's rough, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, Kevin definitely understands. But, to kind of go back to talking about Mike McCarthy, and as you all said, I feel like this is going to be the first year we get to see what this team fully looks like under Mike McCarthy. We always kind of had that extra layer of Kellen Moore from the Jason Garrett era. Now he's fully clean house. He has his guys. He has his philosophy. And Mike McCarthy's even been saying in some of the interviews, we're going to play football the way we want to play. And I'm just like, what does that mean? Like, you've been the head coach for almost 3 years. What do you mean getting back to playing football how we want to play? So I think Mike McCarthy is going to have a new spark. And speaking of Kansas City, right? Everybody was kind of down and out on Andy Reid when he left Philadelphia. He came to Kansas City and just got a new spark. So sometimes you need a new change of scenery. And that's like, I want to see, is Mike McCarthy the guy? And there's only one way to fully analyze, is he the future head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, is by giving him full control. So we'll see. But here's the fun part, Cowboys Nation. If he doesn't pass and he fails, well, then you got Dan Quinn right there waiting. So I feel like the Cowboys, from a coaching standpoint, is in a good situation.
McCarthy's always talking about playing complementary football, right? And he's got a chance to see this defense and this offense play off of one another. Now he's got one of the other questions that I have is, for him taking over as primary play caller here, is what have been the questions about McCarthy in the past? Game management, situational football, his inability to not manage that the way that you would want to, given certain situations that we see from game to game. How much more now will he be able to either delegate some of that responsibility or ensure that he's locked in exactly what he needs to do? And maybe him being the play caller allows him to be that much more focused on what he sees situationally to ensure that he's got this team in the best position. That will be one of the things that I watch for most as the course of these games go on, is how does he manage game to game, situation to situation, his ability to put this team in the best position to succeed game in and game out.
Yeah, and when Aisha was on the Final Word the other night, she had mentioned the new hire of the gentleman from the coast. And I didn't catch his name. I haven't researched him yet.
I got it right here.
Okay. So I guess he's going to be more like your game managing coach. And then he also just brought in the lady who's going to do the analytics aspect. So maybe Mike McCarthy's going to outsource that. But like you said, Kevin, when he hired his homeboy and Mike Nolan, things kind of fell through the cracks. But John Parks is his name. Yeah, I haven't researched him. But yeah, it looks like, he kind of knows where his weaknesses are. And so for him to go actually and get help in that category, it definitely shows. So I feel like Mike McCarthy's going to get back to doing what he does best, is play calling. And what I'm personally excited about the most, y'all, is seeing Mike McCarthy, who's been a quarterback coach guru throughout his career, finally be hip to hip with our quarterback in Dak Prescott, because that's always been my frustration when it came to Mike McCarthy, is like, I don't want Kellen talking to Dak. You know what I'm saying? I don't want the court. Like, I want Mike McCarthy, who's been with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and Montana, and all these types of guys, really being connected at the hip with our quarterback. And you're starting to see that already in camp, where Dak and Mike are having this more of a bond when it comes to communication with the offense. So that's what I'm excited to see, is more about that relationship, if anything.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick, Kevin. I agree with you on a couple of points, but I wanted to kind of mention something that I don't think that as a media people have really properly defined. We talk about complementary football, but we don't ever really define what complementary football means. And, in my sense of what Mike McCarthy means is that we are going to run the ball when we need to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball when we need to pass the ball situationally. Going back to last year, although we had a very explosive offense with Kellen Moore, statistically speaking, there were situational discrepancies where we should have ran the football and we tried to pass the football. Like we're backed up to our own goal line as an example, and I've seen us do this a couple different times, and we go spread and we throw the football. Like that's not the time to throw the football, right? You on the 2-yard line and you play action pass for Dak Prescott. That's not the time to throw the football. And it's not just because of field position, it's just because your defense just got pounded on a 14-play drive. You need to give those guys a little bit of time to rest. And also to your point, Kevin, I really agree with you. And I think that the same things will kind of make or break this season. Looking at the left guard position, looking at the running back position, I think those were positions that the Cowboys could have went all in on in the draft and are via free agency to a point, which the Cowboys didn't because they trust their guys, or they're trying to spread out their cap budget, or whatever other internal reasons there may be. I think that Mike McCarthy has really set himself up to be really, really good in terms of management, right? Because he has Brian Schottenheimer, you have Parks coming in with the analytics. So I think he's delegated the responsibilities enough to keep him honest and also help him maintain the head coach role pretty effectively. So my prediction about this, and some people may not agree, I think that Mike McCarthy will do pretty well overall in terms of managing the OC position. I think that the make or break when we get into the playoffs and how deep we go in the playoffs will be a couple of those key positions that we could have, quote unquote, drafted or went all in on, that we trusted certain positions here, and see if those guys can get the job done or not. I think that will be the telltale. And then progressing from that point, now the Cowboys have to make a decision next year if they keep Mike McCarthy. Do we go all in because this is this guy's last year?
It's to your point, OC. I was thinking about, the situational football, the complementary football, and maybe go back to the Green Bay game. and Mike McCarthy throwing down his headset in frustration, and, all the things that came out of that. And then you think about, the offense, and we kind of talked about this a little bit already, statistically how good they were last year. But the two words that come to mind for me are efficiency and effectiveness. The offense was extremely efficient for the most part, but there was a lack of effectiveness at times, in which you saw, to OC's point about the complementary football and the ability to let your defense rest when they needed to, being able to have the kinds of play calls and situations that not only gets your quarterback into a rhythm, offensively gets into a rhythm, but more importantly, how do you set a tone for a football game based on what you're trying to dictate to defenses? And I think at times Kellen Moore tried to get cute and it didn't work out, and there was a lack of effectiveness that you I hope for McCarthy that not only the efficiency that remains there, but the effectiveness of what he's trying to do, game plan to game plan versus his opponents, is there as well. And that the quarterback, to Tuck's point, being in lockstep with him, is growing and maturing throughout the course of the year, so that by the time you get to the playoffs, you're hitting a stride that allows everyone to be on the same page. And the other thing is, which I found to be very interesting, he talked about during this minicamp and OTA period about playing with purpose, play purpose, which, common sense would tell you, yeah, every play should have a purpose to it, have a goal and a definition that you want to have in order to succeed. But he made that to be a very key, phrase to use throughout OTAs and minicamp, was play purpose.